Good morning. This is George Puckett of Mexico MySpace, starting our interview program again. And today we're with Mr. Alvin Starkman of Oaxaca City, Oaxaca. Good morning, Alvin.
Good morning, George.
Alvin, you have a small B&B in Oaxaca. You're the trip advisor for Oaxaca destinations. You take tourists to visit sites around Oaxaca. You write articles about Oaxaca to help promote tourism. And you work with both academics and documentary film companies doing research around the state. Is that a pretty accurate description of what you do in Oaxaca?
Yes, George, but it's been a work in progress, or rather a life in progress. I do all that now, but it actually all started in 1991 when my family first vacationed here in Oaxaca. We kept coming back 2 or 3 times a year for longer periods of time and then longer periods of time. And then finally we moved here in 2004. So I've seen a lot of changes here in Oaxaca over the past 2 decades.
That's basically what I want to talk to you about today, Alvin, the changes. Not so much what Oaxaca was like 20 years ago, but rather what's been going on over the past few years since the U.S. economy began its downward spiral and the press began writing, it seems, incessantly about the drug wars. How has that affected Oaxaca's economy and tourism?
Well, there's no doubt, George, that many people, mainly Americans, are now afraid to visit Mexico, anywhere in Mexico, but that's because of what they read. It's much less of a problem with tourism from other parts of the world like Europe, Australia, Japan, and so on. Canadians have traditionally not hopped on the fear-mongering bandwagon, thankfully, and even with the recent bad publicity in the Canadian press that Mexico has been getting, tourism in Huatulco, as you know, which gets a lot of Canadians, is still strong, very strong. And here in the city of Oaxaca, it's strong, certainly in terms of Canadians. There's always been an overrepresentation of Canadian tourists in the state of Oaxaca relative to Americans, but it's getting more pronounced nowadays, with Americans staying away now more than before.
But what about the economy of Oaxaca over the past few years? And I'm referring mainly to the city and central valleys. How has the economy been faring in the face of the problems that are being promoted in the press?
Uh, Tourism, as you may know, is one of the most important industries in Oaxaca, if not the most important industry. We took a hit in 2006 as a result of the civil unrest for a few months and the inaccurate reporting of it in the U.S. media in terms of suggesting it was unsafe to visit the city. Now, of course, that wasn't true, and in fact, no tourist was ever targeted or harmed during that conflict. Um, Now, to qualify, I did read about some idiot American tourist deciding that he wanted to video a march when he knew that there would be conflict because the state police were right there up front trying to quell things. So this American tourist got tear gassed, but thankfully he took it in stride. Otherwise, George, over those months, we were virtually incident-free vis-a-vis tourists getting harmed. Now compare that to the city pages of online newspapers throughout the United States. Sometimes you read about 5 or 6 separate incidents of violence in a single day. But I think you Americans are getting better at reading between the lines and not falling prey to the journalists. And thus, despite all of this, the economy continues to grow here in Oaxaca.
Explain to me, then, Alvin, what evidence have you seen regarding growth?
Do you want me to list the evidence that I see?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay. Well, over the past 3 years or so, at least 2 new car dealerships have opened. We've seen an expansion in the high-end boutique hotel market, with 2 new ones having opened in the last year or year and a half, and a luxury spa-type hotel opening in a near village. Oaxaca now has its first craft beer store, And on the mezcal front, no less than 6 mezcalerias serving the middle class have recently opened. They serve tourists and middle-class Oaxacans alike. Only a few months ago, a Walmart and a Suburbia opened in the city. And you know that places like companies like Walmart, the Sam Walton family, they don't open up anywhere unless they've done their background research and marketing. And you know, Oxo began opening up stores in Oaxaca around the beginning of the year. And even rumor has it that Starbucks is working on opening up 4 or 5 coffee shops. And all that's going to give Italian Coffee Company a run for its money. In terms of tourism directly, one of the Spanish language schools in Oaxaca opened up a second branch downtown, that is. And we've seen new high-end restaurants and another cooking school open within the last year or so. And then there are the ethnic restaurants, which have been opening up fast and furiously. Within the last year and a half, I've seen Moroccan, Greek, and a new Taiwan opening up, as well as a spate of new Italian eateries.
What about those new highways we've been hearing about connecting the capital to Huatulco and Puerto Escondido?
Okay, well,
pronounce that city for me.
Okay, Huatulco.
Huatulco. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Well, you know a bit about Mexico City, about southern Mexico rather, meaning to say that nothing happens quickly here in southern Mexico. The new toll road connecting the coast, specifically Huatulco to Oaxaca, is continuing, and there is a highway widening project improving the road from Oaxaca to Pachutla and then on to Puerto Escondido, and that's progressing nicely. So now we already have long stretches of brand new 4-lane highway already open. So we're seeing more cross-selling already of holidays for beachgoers and those wanting the culture of Oaxaca. Flights between the capital and the coast are still expensive, but now we have easier and more comfortable access using a car rentals, your own car, buses, and van service. So what's happening is people are more amenable to coming to Oaxaca as an extension of their beach vacation, and as well traveling from Oaxaca to spend a couple of days on the beach, be it Huatulco, Puerto Escondido, or some of the smaller beach areas along the Pacific.
So then how's that helping the economy, Alvin?
Well, firstly, the Mexican government is continuing with infrastructure improvements, meaning that the government is confident that if it builds, they will come. Secondly, people are extending their Mexican vacations, wanting to spend time both on the beach and in the mountains and Oaxaca's central valleys. More time in the state means more money for the economy. Look, George, a couple of years ago I bought a piece of land just up the street from my house, anticipating more demand in the city for the future. Right now I'm just hanging on to it. I may build 2 houses on it to sell, or just keep it for my daughter for 20 or 30 years from now and let her decide what she wants to do with it, because it's going up. That particular piece of land has already increased about 30%, I estimate, in the last couple of years. And I can only refer to I can best refer to my own neighborhood, that is. So over the past 3 years, at least a dozen new homes, higher end, have gone up within 3 or 4 blocks of our home. Now, these are homes of middle and upper class Mexicans, by and large, who have been improving their financial lots over the past few years, all because of strong tourism. But I have to say, I've got to really admit that 2011 was a very soft year for tourism in the state, but 2012 appears to be back on track, and we're all positive looking forward into the future. Now, for 2012, our own B&B calendar seems to be coming along fine. And for me personally, I've actually been doing more couples tours in the Central Valleys than I want to do. So I've decided to become a little bit more selective regarding who I work with. And finally, specialized tourism has been extremely good and growing. I've done group tours for mezcal aficionados, culinary tours, and of course I continue to have my Day of the Day of the Dead groups coming down. In fact, within the past year or so, I've worked with a group of watercolor artists and with an ethnobotanist group. So we're certainly getting a diversity of groups down here, George.
Well, Alvin, you sure convinced me, at least, that things are going really well down in Oaxaca, and for you. Thanks very much for taking the time out from your day to allow me this interview, and I hope things continue to go well in the future.
Oh, my pleasure, George. Anytime, just give me a shout and be happy to update you. Now, you take care.
Okay, adios.